Hi guys, it's Chris here again from the Ultimate Recycler. Coke. Who likes Coke? I used to drink it as a young bloke, but I don't touch the stuff now. I'm going to pour this can, or it's not a full can, it's about half or 2/3 of a can, into my worm farm. Now, before you jump up and down, I'm not being cruel to my worms. This particular spot is actually just an open garden bed. I do tests here all the time. I call it a worm farm because there's lots of worms living around here, and they're naturally occurring composting worms. And if you care to look at my channel, there are stacks and stacks of worm tests on all sorts of things, and the guys just appear. They come from everywhere to eat the food. So it's like they're all sitting back somewhere waiting for their next feed. Oh, there is one there. We'll put him out of the road for the moment. So this is an open garden bed. The worms are free to come and go. I'm not trying to poison them. I don't think Coke poured into a small worm farm, an enclosed farm, would be a good idea at all. But I'm going to pour this Coke, which I found in my shop, by the way. This can was left just on a shelf in my shop. Clearly someone either forgot about it or couldn't be bothered taking it to the bin, and felt they needed to leave it in my shop. So anyway, rather than just tip it down the drain, it'll be flat now, by the way, I thought I'd tip it in my worm farm in the name of science, and we'll see what happens. Now clearly it's going to soak in, but be really interesting to see if bacteria get into this, if the worms come along and have a feast, if they stay away because they don't like all the sugar, or maybe it's acidic. Don't know, that's what tests are all about. Alright, I've poured it in there. We'll put the carpet back over, keep it nice and damp and dark for the worms. And if they like the stuff, or if they like the bacteria that gets into that Coke, they'll be back. If they don't like it, they won't be. We'll check it next week and see what's going on. Okay, it's only 3 days into this Coke experiment, but I just thought I'd have a peek to see if the worms have totally vanished, although I did only find one when I put it in, and there's one right there. So let's have a scratch where I poured the Coke in. There's a worm. There's another one. Oh, look. There's a few in here. So that's really bizarre, in that I thought the Coke would certainly be unpleasant for them, and they wouldn't be at all interested unless bacteria came and sort of started to attack the sugary compounds of the Coke, and then the worms got interested. But certainly they haven't run away. In fact, it's actually attracted a few. So okay, we'll leave it a few more days and have another peek. Okay, it's 6 days in on this Coke experiment now. I'm checking it pretty regularly just to follow up, because we had action after 3 days, and now it's a further 3 days. So what do we got? There's worms there. Definitely. Let's dig a little deeper where the Coke's soaked in. Alright, so what's that tell us? This area was barren of worms when I started this experiment. And now, whilst there's not masses, there's certainly a decent amount that have been attracted back into this spot from the Coca Cola. So, alright, they've obviously come to eat something, and worms live off bacteria, and the only thing that's happened to this spot is I've added Coca Cola, and clearly there's been bacteria then get in very quickly, because I've done veggie tests and food scrap tests, and nothing's really happened for the a good week or more, other than the food scraps go mouldy. But look, we'll just get a bit of depth here, because the Coke would have soaked in, and there's quite a lot of worms right through here. Now I've just decided, before I finish up this video, because the amount of Coke we put in here was less than a can full, it was about 2/3, I've got a bottle of Coke in the fridge at home that has been there for months and months and months. I think one of the kids brought it over when they visited, and we don't drink Coke, don't touch the stuff, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to grab that, and tomorrow I'll tip the bottle in here. I think there'd be at least a litre. So that'll just extend this experiment a little more, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if we get a larger population of worms come back. And here we go. In the name of science, we'll sacrifice this bottle of Coke that's been sitting in our fridge at home for months and months and months, and we'll just add it to where we poured the can the other day. We had a good scratch around the other day. There's still a couple of worms here. We'll pour this bottle in the same spot here, and this one's not flat. So this is going to be really interesting for the worms. If they don't like it, they'll just get out of here. But just be really interesting to see, based on the fact that we had a few come back for the Coke we tipped out of the can. It's doing lots of frothing. There we go. That garden bed's had a super dose of sugar. This isn't the sugar-free Coke, and we just tipped in 1.25 litres. So we'll leave this for 2 or 3 days and we'll have a look. Time to follow up on this Coke experiment. We tipped a bottle of Coke in here around about 6 days ago. I haven't had a chance to get back to it till now. So the worms have had a chance to come back into it if they want to. Oh, and have they what? Now that's a great result. Let's have a scratch in here. That's phenomenal. Now look at that. Who would have thought that these guys would be right back in to this spot after seeing it froth up with a litre or 1.25 litres of Coke? And there is gazillions of worms in here. And if we go deep, because there was a lot of Coke, it would have soaked right down. That is really impressive. So they appear to have have not suffered any issues. They certainly wouldn't have come back in to this spot if they didn't like the Coke, or if it left it acidic, or if it left anything that they clearly didn't like. So how about that? I wouldn't have expected that sort of a result. Now I certainly don't propose that you buy Coke to put in your little worm farm. As I said at the start of this video, I don't think it'd be a good idea to pour Coke in a situation where the worms can't get away from it for a while, because I wouldn't imagine they'd like it frothing up. But maybe it's like a spa, maybe they enjoy the bubbles. So there you go. The purpose, I guess, of this is to say that, alright, Coke isn't an issue. If you want to tip out some old flat Coke after a party and tip it into your garden, there's no problems. It's not going to do any harm to the soil microbes or the worms. In fact, if anything, they'll probably enjoy it. So, as I said, I don't recommend this as a worm food, and you'd be silly just to go and buy Coke to feed your worms. But if you've got to tip some out in your garden, clearly there's no issues with it.